I'm a representative from Gold Zero. And nuclear weapons spending has skyrocketed since the Cold War.
Hold the microphone close.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I'm wondering what, if elected president, what you will do to cut spending on nuclear weapons.
Good question. Brittany mentioned that spending on nuclear weapons has skyrocketed, and she's right. We now have about 5,000 nuclear weapons. Now, I myself don't know what this world looks like after 10 nuclear weapons. If there's anything left in the world, I don't quite think we need 5,000. So I think you're absolutely right. This is an area where we can save substantial sums of money and probably make the world a safer place. So we should cut back on the number of nuclear weapons we have in storage.
First off, I want to say thank you to you and all the Democratic nominees for having substantive debate, yes, and agreeing with each other on the important issues. Being a grassroots campaign, how are you going to reach those who are not the strongest supporters of you? Because I have friends saying that that's not the case right now. And if you're going to reach out to those who are going to fund your campaign and be basically the life of it, how are you going to do that?
Okay, good question. We started kind of behind other campaigns when we came to Iowa. We now have thousands of volunteers, people who are making telephone calls every day, as I understand it, people who are knocking on doors. By the end of this campaign, we will have caucus organizers in perhaps every county in the state of Iowa, and we are going to run a strong grassroots campaign. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have TV ads, we'll have radio ads, but the heart of our campaign will be volunteers knocking on doors, talking to their neighbors, and bringing them out on caucus night.
Hi, my name is Kate Kearns, and I am the granddaughter of Iowa State Representative Jerry Kearns. My question is about the Syrian refugee crisis and what you would do to help those people come to this country and live a safe and healthy life.
Good. All of you are aware that there is a nightmarish refugee situation right now, not only from Syria, but from Afghanistan as well. And many hundreds of thousands of people are fleeing the civil war in Syria and the chaos and bloodshed in Afghanistan, and they're heading to Europe. I think not just the United States, but the entire world has a moral responsibility to accept those people and resettle them. So it is, what I think has got to happen is Europe, the United States, and some of the Gulf region countries like Saudi Arabia are going to have to open their doors. Now, I can't give you there's some people who are saying 65,000. I don't know if there's a magical number. I think the numbers may be higher, may be lower. But I think we do have a moral responsibility as an international community, not just the United States, not just Europe, Gulf region, other parts of the world, to help these people resettle.
I'm all for the minimum wage going up, but are you going to raise the other wages on the same type of scale?
Well, when the minimum wage goes up, other wages will go up as well by definition. And the beauty of that is it is not only good for the workers. So if you're making 12 bucks now, you're going to go up. If you're making 15 bucks, you are going to go up. The result of all of that means that working people who today, in many cases, don't have any disposable income. People work a whole week, they don't have any money. When people have money in their pocket, by seeing their wages go up, they're going to go out and spend that money. They're going to buy goods, they're going to buy services. When they do that, they create jobs for other people. So I see this up as a way not only to improve the lives of people, but to create jobs as well. So the answer is yes.
I've seen on the news a lot of misinformation and them twisting the facts to what they want us to hear, more what the facts are. And I just want to know what you intend to do to break up that media monopoly.
Well, here's the problem, and I don't know that there's a simple answer to it. Here's my concern with media. It's not that I get treated any better or worse than other candidates. I don't. What media tends to do, corporate media tends to do, is kind of deflect attention away from the most important issues facing working people. All right. For example, and I didn't get into this in great length, I voted against CAFTA and NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China. There was a study done looking at media, and they found almost no discussion about trade at all. Not at all. Okay? The United States is the only major country on earth, as I mentioned a moment ago, that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. Have you heard much discussion about that? Pretty big issue. In terms of income and wealth inequality, we don't hear a whole lot. You may hear a sentence or two there. In terms of climate change, to give you an example, about a year ago, a few senators and me, we wrote a letter to the heads of the major networks, and we said, you know what, there was a study that came out, and your Sunday news shows are not talking about climate change at all, when the scientists tell us it is the major planetary crisis that we face. You're not talking about it. Does that have something to do with all of the big energy money that goes into television? I think it does. So, I'm not sure what the answer is. One thing I do know is we have to protect net neutrality. We have to make sure that the other thing that I think is that, the Republicans have their very own network called Fox. Progressives should figure out how we have a network for ourselves as well. Okay? So there's a lot to be done. I don't have a magical formulation. But I think we need a media which allows us to debate and understand the important issues facing our country. And too often what media is in politics, it's about gossip. It is about polls and fundraising, rather than a serious discussion about serious issues. And we have got to demand that media does that. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah.
In regards to how will you be getting our troops back out of Afghanistan and all the groups?
Okay. You're looking at a U.S. Senator and a former member of the House who voted against the war in Iraq. Somewhere on my website, BernieSanders.com, is the speech that I gave on the floor of the House as to why I was opposed to the war in Iraq, and I have to admit, without any joy in my heart, I wish I were wrong, that it was very prescient. Much of what I feared would happen in that speech, in fact, did happen. So what we are in right now, a situation where we have in Afghanistan an increase in gains on the part of the Taliban. My hope, and I supported the President's goal of getting our troops home from Iraq and Afghanistan as soon as possible and keeping our troops out of combat. But I think the President is right, that given the current crisis that we're facing there, we need to keep a relatively small number of troops not in combat, but to protect our embassies, etc., and also to train Afghan troops. So my hope is we bring them home as soon as possible. But I am supportive of keeping, at this moment at least, a small, relatively small number of troops there to train the Afghan army not to be in combat themselves. Okay, other questions, maybe two more questions? All right, young man right here.
What do you think the United States is going to be in 10 years?
Well, I'll tell you the question is, where do I think the U.S. will be in 10 years? Very good question. And you have the decision decision as to where we will be has a lot to do with you and with everybody else in this room. And we face some enormously stark choices. We today have a Republican Party that has moved very, very far to the right. And I think, let me just lay it on the line and tell you what most of these guys believe. What these guys believe is that we should cut, not all, but almost all, believe that we should cut Social Security. We should voucherize Medicare and transform Medicare. Massive cuts in Medicaid, massive cuts in education, massive cuts in nutrition. And by the way, we should give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the wealthiest 0.2%. And by the way, it seems that these guys are itching for another war. Apparently the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were not enough. And whether it's Russia or China or getting involved in Syria, they're ready to go again. They're very excited about war, so long as it's not their kids who are fighting it. Then in terms of campaign finance, many Republicans, the Republican leadership today, believes that Citizens United has not gone far enough. They want to get rid of all regulations, which means that the Koch brothers cannot just do independent expenditures, they can directly give money to candidates, essentially making those candidates their own particular employees. Right, that is one future for America. More tax breaks for billionaires, major cutbacks in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education, environmental protection, ignoring the crisis of climate change. That is one vision. Then there is another vision, and that is revitalizing American democracy, getting more people to participate, real campaign finance reform, creating millions of jobs by rebuilding our infrastructure, making public colleges and universities tuition-free, moving toward health care for all as a right, protecting women's rights and gay rights. That is another vision for America. Now, which path we take depends on you. I will do my job, but I cannot do it alone. Millions of people are going to have to stand together in the struggle. Ma'am?
As someone who works with the developmentally disabled and has seen their funding cut multiple times over the only 3.5 years I've worked with them, what would you do to stop that, the cuts to the funding and make sure that my people have a place to live?
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Look, this is, everyone hear the question? She works with people with disabilities. And she has seen in 3.5 years cuts in funding. All over America, that is what we are seeing. And if Republicans have their way, there will be more savage cuts. And that is just the issue that we have to decide as an American people. We are the richest country in the history of the world. You think we should be cutting back on programs for people with disabilities? No, I don't think so. But what our Republican friends will do is not only continue to cut education, those programs, but many other programs as well. Now it gets back to the question this young man asked, what kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country where people do not get the care and the attention they need? Or do we want to be a country where we stand together as a people and take care of each other? I think the vast majority of the American people want to see us as a nation that comes together, that protects each other. And that's the way. This was a great turnout, and let me thank you folks going away.